What is the true root cause behind building wealth? Stay tuned. All right, well, we are back once again, just like we are every single Wednesday here live for NoteSchool TV. We are here on Wednesdays at 11:05 Central Time. So as always, make sure you're jumping in, make sure you're participating. Always glad to have you here. Say hello in the comments. And for this show specifically, if you're getting a lot of content out of this, if you're getting value out of this, it really helps us if you like the video. It not just helps the whole YouTube algorithm, all this kind of stuff, but it really also helps better tell us what content we should continue to make. And as always, if you want to learn more, guess what? There's a subscribe button. You can literally just go and click that button and you'll have access to the latest and greatest content that we're pushing out every single week. And I would probably say for the actual latest and greatest, there's nothing more live than a live show. And so make sure you're clicking that bell notification, which will simply notify you, hey, we're going live. Jump on, participate, bring your questions, comments, concerns, and just simply hang out with us, right? This is a great place to actually engage a little bit, comment during the show, and always you can share this link with somebody else if you think it's valuable for them as well. And so we've got a fantastic show coming up. Very special guest, I think that has maybe a different approach, maybe a different way to help you think about really building your business and maybe even building out some legacy wealth. And so before we get too far down the road going into that, as always, let's find out what's happening right now in the marketplace. Joe, how we doing?
I am doing amazing, Brian. Great intro, by the way. Great guest today. You guys are in for a real treat. So, home prices, Brian, hit a 45-year high, right? And since I'm just 45 years old, I wouldn't have remembered that other one, right?
Right.
Right. Everybody knows I'm kidding there, right? But according to CoreLogic, the home price index is the highest that it has been since 1976. So that goes back a ways. And, when you look at this, the price appreciation, it continues to go up. And we're in this crazy time. And one of the things that I really kind of hit me about the article, and of course it's compounded by the shortage of real estate, but the biggest part of that, it says on the supply side, it is also the result of chronic underbuilding, especially of affordable home stock. The lack of supply is unlikely to be resolved over the next 5 to 10 years without more aggressive incentives to build more affordable homes. So it is something that is that it's going to be around a while. And then we have home buyers snatching up the new inventory, right? So interesting stuff. Median home prices are up 18% year over year. Median home price in July, which is the latest data that we have, is $358,250. It's a big number. New listings are down 7% from a year ago, from last summer, which is, it just continues to add on to the shortage of properties. 34% of homes listed went under contract in a week. 34%. So they're still flying off the shelves, and 50% sold above list price. So half the homes out there that transacted this summer or in July, they went above listing price. So it is an interesting marketplace for sure. And it's one of those things it's going to stick with us for just a little bit. So, it just makes sense that we are in the note business as we move forward, because just simply the opportunities that are there, and creative buying and creative selling on terms are really the way to go. So with that, I'm going to bring Brian back on. And then our guest today is, he's a doctor of veterinary medicine. So it's Dr. Nye, Gary Nye from Springfield, Missouri. Welcome today, Gary. Thanks for being on.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Brian. How are you guys?
Good. How we doing?
Doing great. Doing great.
Love
Family's all good?
Yep. Boys are both doing well, and my wife's working right now while I'm doing this, so that's good.
She's running the show right now while you're doing this, right?
Yep.
So Gary, tell us a little bit about kind of your background and kind of how you got started, or just your background, and then we'll go into kind of the note space and where you were in real estate investing and so on.
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in Missouri, and farming background basically, and went off to serve my country in the Air Force after high school. Got a little bit of funding towards my education that way, and went on to vet school from there, and graduated from the University of Missouri here in Columbia, Missouri, and had mostly an equine interest at that time, and practiced equine for probably 20 years, and met my wife. She was actually in veterinary school at the University of Minnesota when I met her, and I was doing a residency up there, and so from there, I drug her around the country following my career for several years, and finally brought her and our kids home to Missouri, and we bought a practice here in Springfield about 16 years ago now, and we've been co-workers and co-owners of the business for a long time, and we've been very successful, very blessed. We rode out the storm of '08 and the economic downturn, which was kind of hard on the practice. We had bought just prior to that, so it was a little bit difficult, but we rode that out and seeing the benefits of small business ownership now. But something I also recognize is that I got to be there every day, and if the owners aren't there, we're not producing revenue, and so that with the assets that we've been able to save and accumulate, I definitely knew there was something else I wanted to do with them. Besides just either put them back only into the business or the stock market. So,
yeah. And so when you found yourself in this spot of realizing, all right, this is a very, active. Sometimes people forget that running a business is you're just creating your own job. Yeah. You just work for yourself. Yeah. It's still a job. It's not, the beach lifestyle that everybody talks about when you don't know anything about running a business. And so you said to yourself at some point, all right, I really like that we could become a little bit more passive, and maybe this real estate game is something I should entertain. So kind of walk us through kind of the other, outside of just buying the hospital, right, that your current practice is in, what's kind of been your experience and entry point into real estate and kind of the pros and cons of that for you?
Yeah, it like I said, the hospital has been very good to us, and but we do have to be there all the time. And the job that I perform in the hospital, I do both small and large animal, and I know that I've got a limited lifespan with that. And I'm a workaholic, so me being there and working all the time is not that unusual, but it's something that I knew that I needed to have other options, and not give up the lifestyle that we've enjoyed. And so getting our assets into something that would produce revenue or income for us outside of just what we could produce by being there at the hospital was important. And, building our business so that we have a saleable item at some point when we want to retire as well. So, when we first bought the hospital, it's an older facility, and we had looked at building a new hospital. And unfortunately, that was right before '08. We had bought a piece of commercial property, and it had two single residence, family residence on it. And we went through the process of rezoning and all of that to commercial, and then '08 hit, and we were all the way to the bid out stage on the project, and I put a halt to it because I did not want the mortgage that was going to come with that, seeing what was coming. And so we kept renters in those houses for a little while, and one of them ended up getting burned down by the renters, and the other one was the typical nightmares that occur with landlords and renters. But so it gave me, it had reinforced a previous run at real estate that I had done a few years earlier, where, I decided, being a landlord is not what I wanted to do. And so this just reinforced it even further. But, again, I think we all get led in certain directions for a reason. And so I started looking more for where we could get the assets that we have deployed, so that, like so many people are trying to do right now. And, real estate kept surfacing as probably the best option, but I didn't know how to do it and avoid being that landlord. Yeah. So joined the local RIA. In the spring, Brian, you came to town and spoke at one of our meetings, and then did the one-day Saturday class. And in fact, that night, you made such great sense with what you were telling us, and the light bulb went on. And I signed up for the 3-day right there that evening. I didn't even wait for the Saturday event, but I brought my son. He was my youngest son. He was with me that night, and he came to the Saturday event as well. And the 3-day was a little more than he wanted to sit through, so he didn't attend all of that. But it just, by the end of the 3-day, I had joined NoteSchool, as a member as well. And, and I'm just trying to forge ahead now. And because I can see this is clearly where I want to deploy my assets, is being the bank in the note space, creative financing, and the whole bit.
One of the things that kind of struck me, everybody, and I, myself included, right? It was like, so, doctors, it's all up here, right? It's all in the mind. And I was at my dermatologist one day, and his staff would go nuts, because he'd get me in his chair and then he'd keep me there for 45 minutes asking me questions about investing in notes and real estate, right? And he said, Joe, I just want to do something where I don't have to work with my hands. And in my mind, I'm going, oh my God, it's not you work with your hands. No, you work with this. And then it kind of hit me that, it's just like anything else. If you don't have the ability to do this, and you're like anybody else, you're just looking for the passive income, right?
Yep. And my particular function in the hospital, I'm a natural practitioner. So I do a lot of chiropractic, acupuncture, a lot of natural things. My wife's the conventional practitioner, and I do that on small and large animals. And so chiropractic takes a toll on the body over time. And it's something that I know that I won't be able to do, forever. And so it's something that, and again, as long as this is good, I intend to continue to work, and I can be very productive into, many years to come in the note space. I know that is where, like I said, I was led to it. And I think there was reasons why I didn't dive off into being a landlord in the past. And now I see the path forward.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common thing. We hear Eddie say all the time, the longer someone's in the real estate business, the more clear it becomes that the note business might be something of interest, right? And, we're in completely different boats, but at the same time, we started in similar scenarios. It's, you hear, the money's in real estate, right? Isn't that how people build their wealth, especially 100 years ago? All these people made all this money because of all their investments in real estate. And you really get funneled this tunnel vision of like, oh, it's in rental properties. And I'm not saying rental properties don't work, right? Definitely, I'm sure people have good experiences, but more often than not, it's the mental expectations. You're getting in wanting the good piece of real estate, right? But then you're kind of just like, well, there may be a downside, and it'll be fine. I'll put up with whatever this bad thing is in order to get this good thing. So you start going, and then you get a house burned down, and you think maybe this is not worth whatever the good part is, And I'm sure, most people watching this have had some sort of. I've yet to meet a landlord who has not had a negative tenant experience to some extent.
Right.
You haven't been in the business if you hadn't had that. So let's just put that out there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so you kind of just start to transition and say, well, maybe real estate isn't for me. And really, this is kind of like, this is kind of like, I think, your field too. And someone says, oh, I want to be a doctor. Well, that's great. You want to help people. You want to provide these type of services. But what kind of doctor do you want to be? Do you want to be a pediatrician? Do you want to work with animals? There's so many things that you can do in that space. Yeah. And I feel like with real estate, so many times people put it in this kind of bubble of, oh, it's just rental properties. And it's like, what if I could show you that there is the good piece without the bad piece? Right. And that's where, this is something obviously I talk a lot about in the one-day class. This is probably something that spoke to you because it was like revolutionary to me that so I don't have to have all the negative stuff.
Yep. Absolutely. That's one of the things that appealed to me about the notes was that you don't have those headaches that are going to come with like that late night call I got when the house was on fire.
Gary, we wanted to talk about the legacy piece of this is, not only the wealth building and, the passive part of that, but the legacy piece to this. And you mentioned you brought your 16-year-old Kirby to the class that night, right? And then, you and I've had some conversations about getting your 21-year-old involved. And, I'm kind of the same way in getting my son involved and all of that. And so tell us a little bit about what that family piece, really means to kind of you and your wife and so on as you bring that, want to bring them into the business.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we've amassed some assets, from our business, been very blessed with that. And, I feel a strong desire to want to give back for that. And we certainly do every year, but I want to do much more than that and leave more here after I'm gone. And that is both in my kids and in what I can do for the communities that we support already around the world. And so, there's certainly that piece of building that, replacing that veterinary income for us so that we can continue a lifestyle that doesn't rely on Social Security or what might be left in the stock market, after the next crash. But so that's definitely a piece of it. But our self-directed IRAs, I want to build wealth there that can be passed on from generation to generation, and then really teach my sons, if they choose to come into the business, and I hope that they do, and I'm trying to foster that so that they will. Because like I'm always fond of saying, I want to teach them to fish instead of giving them the fish. And I think in getting them the financial intelligence and the ability to operate in the note space so that they can always provide for their needs, no matter what they desire to do. Maybe they want to do something that, won't produce much income, and God bless them, do that, but you'll be able to take care of your needs that way. And I think that would be much more valuable to them and their families in the future than anything that I could ever leave in an inheritance to them. And then I've got, other ideas where I want, I have a strong interest. I mentioned earlier that I've got a farming background, and I grew up in a very conventional vein of farming. And now I'm very much immersed in regenerative agriculture, and and I see what happens to our families, have happened to our family units in this country. And so I have a very strong desire to be able to give back in helping young farming families that want to raise their kids in an agriculture environment again, getting started. And I think I can leverage the note space to help do that by acquiring pieces of property that they can operate off of, and partnering with them, and maybe at some point even once the farm is productive, selling that farm to them on a seller carried finance so that they can afford to do it too. So, and give them some ownership in it. So I've got, big ideas. I'm just a newbie and I'm getting started in the note space, but, I hope to be able to be successful with this campaign on the burnout landlord side and generate some capital to work with going forward and propel me into my vision for the notes.
One of the things that I really like about what you said there, you and your wife as well grew up knowing that you wanted to go into veterinary medicine, right?
Yeah.
And then there's like Brian and I, where we didn't, we ended up here, and thank God we did, right? And I'm speaking for you right now as well, sure. Brian, right? And so it is tough to kind of decide as a young person today which way to go. And so I love the fact that you're bringing the boys into this and giving them something that they can build. And then this legacy part of it, and talking about using seller financing in the farming community and helping, younger, sustainable farming and all that. I think that's an amazing philosophy. Brian?
Yeah. And I think that so many times, which first of all, I'll go ahead and tell everybody, I was actually pre-med in college. I actually wanted to be a doctor growing up. It turns out it's a lot harder, than they make it out to be. And so I didn't make it. Let's just put it that way. But it turned out to be just fine. In fact, because of your story, and this kind of ties back into what I said at the beginning about what's like that true root cause of building wealth, like what causes someone to go down this path, and more importantly, what keeps them motivated to keep making those decisions over and over again. Because it's not like you made a decision today and that's it, that's all I have to do, and all my goals are met, right? And so I think for your story, what really connects well with me and probably so many people watching this is you have this desire to help. There's something else, right? There's this, some people call it your big why or whatever it is. And I happen to get in this industry only because my dad called me one day and was like, hey, there's this thing, that you could probably get into, right? And because of that step of what my dad did, it really obviously changed the direction of my life. And I think that so many times when we talk about whether it's real estate in general, the note business, whatever aspect you're actually interested in, you're thinking in terms of, I want to make a lot of money, or, I want to own all these doors. And it's about this, this status symbol that you can somehow become, have made it or whatever. But the reality is there's really something substantially bigger than that. Yes. And I always do the exercise of, somebody tells me, I'll say, well, hey, what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? I want to own $10 million in real estate in the next 5 years. All right. Tell you what, if I put $10 million in your bank account right now, what are you doing tomorrow? Right. And it's amazing how that conversation radically shifts to, I would do this. And, I've got this cause that I want to support. And, I could, in your case, I could launch all these farms and really almost an education program within it. And like you have this vision outside of it. And this is simply the vehicle that's going to get you there. What kills people so many times in this space is they see the vision and they say, real estate's going to be the vehicle to get me there. But then they experience the same thing that I've experienced and y'all have experienced, which is, the downside of that isn't worth the long term, right? Because we want immediate gratification, and that cash flow doesn't go up on a monthly basis. It kind of stays the same for a while, and maybe it jumps up a little bit. And so it's really this slow burn. And so to be able to say, all right, if that's going to be the scenario, if that's going to be the case, and I can't force that to get to my goal faster, what makes this make so much sense, in my opinion, is the idea of, well, then let's take away a lot of the pain. Let's take away a lot of the headache, because that will help you long term. And if you can survive long term, now your goals start to become very, very attainable. And I think that's what's so powerful about your story, is that what you're mapping out in your brain, what you're trying to accomplish, is very attainable, just one note at a time, knowing that you don't have that, that negative downside.
Right.
It's like Eddie says, one thin layer of pain at a time. Gary, what, just as some closing thoughts here, just kind of share with us, just kind of what the future looks like for you and the family and all of that.
Well, I've kind of set the goal as a 5-year plan to try to, replace, I guess, what our current income is out of the veterinary hospital. And I think that's a doable thing. Like I said, I'm pretty much a workaholic, so I'll work pretty diligently at it. And then it'll be up to my wife and I whether we choose to continue to practice or not. We won't have to continue to practice to maintain the same lifestyle. And so I hope over that period of time that we bring the boys in and they're up and functioning with me by the end of that 5 years, so that we can work as a partnership going forward, because I think we'll accomplish a lot more going forward as a partnership than me trying to be the Lone Ranger doing it.
Absolutely.
And then start to work on that vision, and carry it on from there. So, God willing, we'll accomplish it over the next 5 years or so.
Absolutely. And what you said there is, I truly believe that, you've got to have your significant other, your spouse on board. And if you do, that makes it a great transition for you as well. Right. Yeah. So, Brian, why don't you kind of wrap us up here and take us out?
All right. Well, thank you so much. Big thank you to Dr. Nye for spending some time. We really appreciate you coming on.
Yes.
You bet. You bet.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
And so for everybody who's really watching, who's trying to figure out, hey, I really do have this root cause, the deep down that is kind of pushing me towards wealth, and they're trying to figure out, how do I take that next step? What's, in your opinion, you're newer to this than a lot of people. And so what would you suggest they do as a next step?
Yeah, my suggestion would be that they attend at least the one-day class and take it from there then, because I think it'll speak to them.
I love that. Yes, I think that's a pretty logical next step, and really gives us a whole day to spend together. And so it's a perfect segue actually into hearing from our sponsor. Well, hey everyone, it is Brian with NoteSchool, and I'm super excited that I get to invite you to this upcoming one-day deeper dive class that involves everything from the creative financing world to the note business. We call this class Gold in Notes because there's so much value in what we're gonna do. We're gonna take the whole day to really dig into the nitty-gritty, dig into the details of everything from the creative financing world and how we can do more deals, how we can really defer a lot of our taxes, create our own notes, and that opens up a whole other conversation in the afternoon when we talk about wholesaling notes, buying and holding notes, partials, which is a leveraging technique that is the best wealth building tool that I've ever seen. And ultimately, we're going to talk about non-performing notes and how to make some big money from bad debts, because the market conditions are just ripe to go and take advantage of them. And so you can click the link that you see on the screen. We're also going to put it in the comments as well, so you can click it, but sign up. It's a full day class that allows us to really engage with one another. So bring your questions, bring your business problems, and we're going to see you there. That's right. That's right. So all that to being said, it's all about taking action, right? So for you, what does that look like? Right now, I know each one of you can take action right now simply by clicking the like button, right? Just simply like the videos. If this is valuable content, you're getting something out of this, man, let's help NoteSchool out by clicking that button. And as always, if this is more, you want more and more content, go subscribe, click the bell notification so that you can jump in when we're going to be live on Wednesdays. And if you're just really trying to figure out what that next step is, outside of going to noteschool.com/TV, you can always go to the NoteSchool website, noteschool.com. There's a contact us page. Maybe you just have like this burning question. You've got to get answered. You got to get it answered really, really quickly. Come reach out and let's find somebody to help you figure out what your next step needs to be. For everybody else, thanks so much for hanging out with us this week. Always great to have everybody here on NoteSchool TV. Have a great week, and we'll plan on seeing you next week on the other side.